Hey there, my name is Martin, and in today's video I want to focus on the highly requested subject of MIDI guitars. So the way I will go about this is I'm going to start with a melody and show you all the things I do to my melody to make it sound as good as possible. Second, I'm going to show you the tips and tricks that I always apply to improve my guitar melodies and rhythms to make them sound more natural and humanized. And third, I'm going to show you my favorite way to process this dry guitar sound to get that awesome modern pop guitar tone. Now with all that said, let's get down to business. As a starting point, I'm gonna use this melody that I came up with in my head this morning, and I decided to put it in the piano roll, and it sounds something like this. So obviously this is still played on a piano and we want the guitar. So the first thing we're gonna do is replace this FL keys with Native Instruments Contact. And once we're in Contact, I'm going to load the Electric Sunburst Deluxe library, which is my favorite guitar library in the world. If I could only keep one library, then it would 100% be this one because of its realistic and authentic sound. And it also offers great options to tweak the sound to your own preference, which is something I really like about this plugin. So you have these guitar settings over here, which you can use to, for example, only hear the bridge pickup or the neck pickup. But in this case, we're going to go for both. We're also going to leave this to doubling, which practically means we have two guitars playing, one is panned to the left and the other to the right, and typically that creates a wider and fuller sounding guitar, which I love. In the third tab we can insert any effects, and this is a great tool as well because it has a lot of different effects ranging from distortion to amplifiers and cabinets to reverbs and delays, EQs and compression, and other modulation effects like chorus, and a phaser, rotator, all great stuff. But I'm not going to do anything to the sound actually, I'm just going to leave it like this and play the initial melody we had on this guitar sound. So the first thing I'm going to do is randomize the velocity levels, because when you play a guitar, there's no way you're gonna hit each string with the exact same velocity level. So the way I typically do this is using the quantization tool in FL Studio, setting the start time and sensitivity to 0, meaning that the rhythm and starting time won't be affected. And I'll just play with this velocity knob over here. And we simply want these to be at different levels, something like this. I will also lower the volume using the scale levels function, which is a great tool as well. And this simply allows you to decrease the levels of all your notes at once. Something like this. I think I'm going to lower the bass notes a bit more. The next thing I'm going to do is add some movement and rhythm to this guitar because it sounds quite static, right? So the way I typically do this is using the chord structures of the bass notes. So for example, we have F here, and since we are in the A minor C major scale, I know that the chord belonging to this F bass note would be F major, and that consists of F, A, and C. So using this basic information, I'm going to create some rhythm. I'm going to start by adding the perfect fifth of the F, which is C. Perfect fifth of A is E. So that doesn't really work on this exact point of the grid. So I'm just going to move it a little bit. Then moving to the G chord, we're going to use D, the perfect fifth of our G. So once again, I'm going to move this just to make sure it's parallel with the bass note. So let me now lower the volumes of these additional notes slightly. So I think we can also add some more rhythm to the bass notes of the first and the third chord. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten this one and add another one right in the middle of the first bar. And lower its volume a little bit. And do the same for the third chord in G. So that's already sounding better, but I think there's still some rhythm missing in the second and the fourth chord. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the same trick that I just applied to these bass notes of the first and third chord. But now I'm going to apply this to the perfect fifths and the second and the fourth chord. So I'm going to shorten this E over here. That sounds good, and I'll apply the same to the fourth chord. And because this fourth chord only ends with one note over here, whereas the second chord has two notes at the final beat, I'm going to add another one of these perfect fifths over here. So I think that's already sounding quite good in terms of rhythm, but I think we can make the chords a bit more interesting by not just using the perfect fifths. For example, on the third chord. So I think using this D over here is cool, but could be a little more special. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this D to C, which is 2 semitones lower than the perfect fifth of G, and it sounds like this. I'll lower it a bit in volume. And I think we can also do something like this in the fourth chord. So we have this E minor chord in the fourth bar that usually consists of E, G, and B. But we can extend this to an E minor seventh by adding a D. I think that sounds pretty cool already, but what would be cool, I think, is to add like one more note on top of this D over here. So what we could, for example, do is add G, which is the chord that's going to follow after the A in our progression, on top of this D, and then we get something like this. Lower it a bit in volume. So I think that's sounding really good. There's only two things left for me to do, and the first thing is strumming a few chords. And I'm thinking I should strum the second and the fourth chord, and I'm going to use that using the FL Studio strum tool, which is great. I'm going to preserve the end so that the end doesn't exceed the grid, and then I'm just going to play with the strength and tension knobs to find this smooth but still audible strum. And then I also want to strum these two notes over here. And finally, I want to add these key switches. And that's one specific tool that comes with this library. And you can only do it using the A and G sharp note. So the G sharp is a downslide and the A is an upslide. So I can demonstrate this. That's the G sharp. And this is the A. So right now it sounds weird, but once we're going to add this as a transition between different chords, I think it's going to sound really good. So because we're moving from F to A, which is upward, I'm going to add an upslide, so G sharp over here. Here we're going from A to G, so I'm going to use a downslide, the A. Then we're moving down again from G to E, so once again I'm going to insert the A. And finally, we're moving up from the E to the F at the end of the progression, so I will insert a G sharp. And once we've done that, our progression sounds like this. So I think this is sounding great, and now it's time to process the guitar because it's sounding nice, but it's sounding a bit dry, and I think we could add some more characters, some more ambience. So I'm going to add it to the mixer track. And the way I typically start on guitars like these is by inserting a filter. And I'm going to use the free DJM filter, which is very, very easy to use. You just have to move this knob over here. And I'm going to go for a slight low pass, meaning that we cut off some of the harsh high-end frequencies. And I would encourage you to automate this throughout your song. So you could, for example, choose to slowly open up the filter once you move forward within the song. Sounds good. Next, I will insert a reverb, and for that I will use the Valhalla Vintage Verb, which is my favorite reverb. And I think the really cool thing about this is that it lets you choose the color, and you can choose between 3 different decades, and I really like the 80s sound. It's just pleasant to look at, and it has an amazing sound. So I will lower the mix to like 30-40%. And control the low frequencies of the reverb using this low cut tool over here. And that just provides a cleaner reverb, which is what we want, because I don't think we need these lower muddy frequencies in a reverb. That will only cause problems in the mix. Next, we're going to add some character. And for that, I'm going to use Decapitator, which kind of adds some saturation, which sounds really good, I think. You just have to tweak this drive knob, and once you do this, it automatically adjusts the output level so that you don't add too much unintentional gain to your sound, because typically you perceive louder signals as better. So what this does, once you turn up the drive and saturation, it just decreases the output level, which is great. The next thing I want to do is add some more of this character and some more balls to the sound. And for that I'm going to use an amplifier, and this is an amplifier by Waves. It's called the GDR amplifier, and I think this sounds great on electric guitars. I typically like to use the solid state classic preset. So I'm going to make this smoother because it's way too overwhelming in the high mids and the highs. So I'm going to decrease the treble level and decrease the presence. And I will also just decrease the volumes of these knobs over here. I think it's still a bit too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower the mix level of this one. Then I will insert an equalizer to get rid of anything below 100 Hertz. So let's insert this low cut filter at 100 at 36 dB. Okay. I will also slightly decrease the level of the low mids. And also get rid of some of these very sharp levels in the high mids and the highs. Alright, sounds good. So next I'm going to insert Soothe, which does an amazing job at removing and mitigating unwanted and resonant frequencies. And it kind of works the opposite way as an EQ. So here you select the frequencies you want to plug in to take control of. And I think especially for this one, that's around the 4K region, as we just saw in our EQ. And in using the depth knob, you can choose how strong the plugin should control these frequencies. So let's start on the lowest level. So this is the most extreme level, and as you can see here, that's what the plugin is removing. So I like to go somewhere in the middle, around 2-3, I think. And that will just allow for a better listening experience at loud volumes, because if you turn up the volume and you have all these resonant frequencies, that's just going to hurt your ears, and we don't want that. Next, I'm going to insert a stereo imager, which is going to make the sound a bit wider in terms of the stereo spectrum. And for that, I'm going to use S1 Imager by Waves and put it to around 140, 150. Then let me readjust the filter setting, because I think we could have it a bit more low pass. And finally, let's insert a delay, and let me use Valhalla delay for that. So my favorite preset to use here is the glorious guitar delay. So with a mix at 100%, that sounds like this, and this is going to be extreme. But I'm going to decrease the mix level to like maybe 10-20% just to have this subtle delay in the background. think one thing we could add to make the sound a bit cleaner, especially in terms of reverb, is a peak controller. And what we're technically going to be doing is we're going to link the reverb level to this controller. And what that's going to do is whenever the guitar signal is playing, the reverb level will be reduced a little bit. So it's kind of like sidechaining in a way. And this will just allow us to hear the original signal better when it's playing, which is a technique I like to use on my vocals, guitars, and other sounds with heavy reverbs. So I selected peak over here and inverted over here. And now let's have a look at the reverb level. And we can fine-tune this using the volume and tension levels over here. So watch this mix level over here as I'm tweaking these knobs. So now I would like to show you two quick variations to this sound. And the first will be adding a chorus effect. And there's this free chorus plugin called Tell Chorus, and that really creates this more 80s vibe, which is really cool in my opinion, and that sounds like this. So if you're into that 80s sound, which is very much a thing right now, then you should insert something like a chorus. And the other variation I want to show you is a more retro sound. And for that, I will use the RC20 Retro Color. And what this does, it kind of adds this wobble vibrato effect, which sounds like this. So this is an effect that's often used in today's hip-hop, which is very cool, I think. And if you're into that, this is definitely something you should insert to your guitar mixing chain. So I'm gonna get rid of it now, and I'm gonna play you the guitar before and after processing. So this is before. And this is after. So yeah, I think that's sounding really cool. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you received some takeaways. If you did, please hit the like button so the algorithm is more likely to share this video with other producers and music lovers. And yeah, take care and see you next time.